Hello， 歡迎大家繼續收睇2023年巴菲特股東大會。上一集我哋睇咗巴菲特同芒格點樣睇人工智能呢個話題。有興趣嘅朋友可以喺右上角資訊卡嗰欄度撳翻上一條片睇下。今集我哋會睇下有關投資能源嘅問題。有股東就問到美國而家開始慢慢轉用新能源，咁而家巴郡對於新能源嘅投資又足唔足夠呢？
In Iowa, we have actually produced more wind energy than is used, the total amount of energy used by our customers, but it's not producible 24 hours a day necessarily. So there's problems, and incidentally, in Iowa, a significant majority of counties welcome us when we come around and want to put in wind, and some don't want it. I mean, there's a knot in my backyard someplace. There's other places where they love the money they get from a small plot of ground, and people they like the taxes that are paid. But I would say that if there's one state in the union that stands out in the development, it's Iowa. But what's also interesting in Iowa is that we have one other major company. There's always loads of little co-ops and all kinds of things that sell electricity, but we have one major competitor, and our prices are significantly lower. And as a matter of fact, we are now in the Omaha Public Power District, and 3 miles or 4 miles away, we're selling electricity in Iowa, and we are selling it cheaper, even though public power was invented in Nebraska and has been I think it's, George Norris did it back in the 1930s, and it's Nebraska's resisted to some extent wind power more than Iowa, but like I say, our competitor or alternate source hasn't really pursued it the way we have. But I would say that our record in wind and solar has not been topped by any utility in the United States. And of course, it's been aided by the fact that most utilities pay out 70 or 80% of earnings in dividends. And we haven't taken a common dividend out of, we had a little tiny preferred, we haven't taken a common dividend out of it. For 20 years, we reinvested, I don't know how many billion. That's the reason why the earnings have gone from 200 million to 4 billion, but we're not earning a higher rate of return on capital than we were when we started. We just put way more capital into the business as we went along, kept reinvesting the capital. So I wish Greg were here to tell you more details about it, but I would say that we'd really put a Berkshire Hathaway Energy's record against any utility in the United States. Charlie, you've watched it.
Well, I have, and I'm not personally at all sure how bad the global warming is going to be. I don't think anybody knows for sure whether the seas are going to rise 2 inches or 20 feet. And so I think there's a lot of false claims here in a world where much is not known.
Yeah, Wyoming, there is a lot of wind in Wyoming, and we are building transmission lines that extend out through the West. But it was World War II, and they told us to do it, and we had a czar in Washington that could say, just get it done. Like they said to Henry Kaiser on building ships. You can't believe how far ahead we would be now from where we are, but we've got the money, we've got the know-how, and we do spend about, this year, our depreciation in our utility company is on the order of $4 billion, and we spend maybe $3 billion additional to that, so maybe we spend $7 billion, and there are very few companies in the utility industry that are spending that percentage of their depreciation. But we'd love to be spending more. But there are people all over that don't want the pipeline to go through there, or they don't want the tower, whatever it may be. And that is the problem of a democracy. And even, as I mentioned, within Iowa, you've got a great many counties great majority of the counties, I think, but welcome the wind power, and you've got some counties that don't like it. And we're obviously going to work with the ones that want to work with us. We do not have the ability to go in and tell anybody what to do on that. And there's a Public Utility Commission in every state that basically governs what we earn on it, what we do, and that's the way the industry is developed. And that's not bad, unless you get into things that in effect, extend. They're part of a countrywide system rather than a statewide system.
I think also that even if we weren't worried about global warming, it would make sense to shift to renewables to conserve our hydrocarbons. There's certain things hydrocarbons can do that nothing else can do, and there are only so much of them there. Why not be cautious in conserving them?
And the cost, they've gotten so much more efficient too. I mean, the wind stuff. I mean, if you look at what we're doing now, those towers are way more efficient. But there's a lot of people that are talking that they're talking about things that can't be done, and then
there's a lot of nonsense in this field.
Yeah.
If you like nonsense, this is the field for you.
No. Well, we're in the field, so
I know.
睇完新能源嘅投資，西方石油其實亦都係巴菲特近年默默增持嘅愛股啊！有股東就問啦：石油嘅生產商可能慢慢減少生產石油，點解巴郡仍要慢慢去增持西方石油同埋雪佛龍呢兩間嘅公司啊
Well, there's no question. It's really interesting about oil, and Charlie knows way more about oil than I do. When did you buy that royalty in near Bakersfield or wherever it is? But that was before I met you, right?
Yes. No, it wasn't before. Yes, it was. It was just before. You're right.
Yeah.
And that goddamn royalty still paying me $70,000 a year.
What'd you pay for the?
$1,000.
Yeah. Now that's the opposite of the Permian. My dad bought $1,000 or $1,500 worth of royalties before he died in 1964. He left them to my mother. My mother left them to her two daughters, and my older sister died, and my younger sister's here today, and she gets these checks every month, and she knows about all these different fields and what they're producing, and that's the reality of half of the oil production, or something around that, in the United States, and then the other half is shale. And if you've gone to the movies and ever watched oil, you've never watched the things that are pumping out Charlie's royalties in California. You see these gushers of oil. Well, in the Permian, and I'm like, this should sink in on you. And the first day when you bring in a well, it may be 12,000 barrels, it may be 15,000 barrels, and it's dangerous. Occidental had one come in, I think, 19,000 barrels or something like that, one day, and in a year and a half, it becomes practically nothing. It's a different business, in effect. And the United States, it's interesting. We use whatever we use, maybe 11 and a fraction. Well, we produce 11 and a fraction million barrels of oil equivalent a day. But if shale stopped, I mean, it would drop to 6 million very fast. Well, just imagine taking 5 million barrels a day out of the production in the world, and then we're also taking down our strategic petroleum reserve Strategic Petroleum Reserve is the ultimate oil field. You don't have to drill. It's just that we've got it. And it was supposed to be strategic, but it gets involved in politics. And so there's all, when you talk about the oil business, you're talking about different kinds of businesses, basically. And we like Occidental's position in the Permian, and we wouldn't like that position at, well, it got to minus. One day it got to minus $30 a barrel. That was crazy, of course. But if oil sells at X, you do very well. And if it sells at half of X, your costs are the same. And it doesn't change the production, and it doesn't work as well. But it also brings down the oil production of the United States very fast. So we don't know what oil prices will be, but we do very much like the Occidental position they have, and that's why we financed them a few years ago, and it looked like it was a terrible mistake when the oil market just totally collapsed, and then it changed around, and we bought a lot of the common stock. In the last few months, they've reduced our preferred, which we don't like, obviously. I mean, we'd be disappointed in them if they didn't reduce it. It's intelligent from their standpoint. So we've taken, of the $10 billion preferred, we've gotten maybe $400 or $500 million of it retired at 110% of par. But Becky Holub she's an extraordinary manager of Occidental. Her first job was with the city service. That was the first stock I bought in 1942. She knows what happens beneath the surface. I know the math of it, but I wouldn't have the faintest idea what to do if I was in an oil field. I mean, I can dig 2 feet down. I can't in my backyard, and that's my understanding of subsoil in the world. I can't picture the field that Charlie has been collecting that monthly check from 50 plus years, 60, 60 years roughly, or my sister getting at various fields where they just keep pumping and pumping and pumping. And we in the United States are lucky to have the ability to produce the kind of oil we've got from shale, but it is not a long-term source like you might think by watching movies about oil or something of the sort. Charlie, do you have anything?
Yeah, it really dies fast, those shale wells. If you like quick death in your oil wells, we have them for you.
No. But Occidental, they're doing a lot of good things.
Yeah, they drill a lot of new wells, and they're doing it at a profit, but it's a different kind of oil business.
It's just different, yeah. And that's true of almost half the oil produced in the United States. And there's times...
a lot of oil down there that nobody knows how to produce. And they've been working at it for like 50 years. But they worked at the existing shale production for about 50 years before they figured it out. And it was weirdly complicated when they finally were able to do it. There's only one type of sand that works.
Can you imagine a horizontal pipe, that maybe 1.5 miles or something? It's just so different than what you think about.
It goes laterally for 3 miles, 2 miles down.
Yeah.
How in the hell do you drill 2 or 3 miles laterally when you're already 2 or 3 miles under the earth? They've mastered a lot of very tricky technology to be able to get any oil out of these wells at all.
Yeah. And we love the position with Occidental, and we love having Becky run it, and they've been...
And there's a lot more oil down there if anybody can figure out another magic trick. That's all we need is another magic trick.
But Occidental has some other things too.
Yes, but
the price of oil still is incredibly important in terms of the economics of short-lived oil. I mean, no question about that.
Well, if it's
And we will, incidentally, there's speculation about us buying control. We're not going to buy control. We don't want to. We've got the right management running it. I mean, we wouldn't know what to do with it. Charlie wouldn't mind knowing what to do in an oil field.
admitting you're buying coal would be like going out and seeking to acquire a cancer or something. You can't even borrow to expand a coal mine now. It's really, it got very unfashionable.
Yeah. And we think, frankly, some of the things said are ridiculous. And on both sides, on both in both extremes. I mean, it's just, you're dealing with physics. You're dealing with, it's the politicization of positions on something that's enormously important in terms of energy. Is just, it just lends itself to demagogues and fundraisers and advisory organizations and everybody in sight. And we will make rational decisions, and we do not think it's un-American to be producing oil.
And there is no oil basin in the United States that compares to the Permian in terms of promise.
Yeah, we were lucky.
Well,
We didn't know it was there until
yes,
not that many years ago.
it has sort of been used up, and they always knew the shale oil was there, but they thought it was going to stay unrecoverable forever.
The second or third stock I bought was Texas Pacific Land Trust, and they owned 3 million acres down there, and they were grazing revenues of 10,000 a year or something like that. And they were sitting on this incredible amount of oil, and basically that company is now actually part of Chevron, and it went through Texaco and did all kinds of things, and there's still a Texas Pacific Land Trust, but a lot of that property is fee owned by their minerals are owned by Chevron, which is some advantage, but it's an interesting subject, I'll put it that way, and we will not be making any offer for control of Occidental, but we love the shares we have, and we may or may not own more in the future, but we certainly have warrants on which we got as part of the original deal on a very substantial amount of stock at around $59 a share, and those warrants last a long time, and I'm glad we have them.
佢哋嘅答案可以睇得到，巴菲特其實相當睇好無碳石油嘅商機。嚟緊巴菲特股東大會2023年最後一集，我哋會睇下兩位點樣睇 Elon Musk 咧。佢哋亦都有講到自己同 Elon Musk 係有咩唔同嘅。中意呢個系列嘅朋友，記得訂閱我嘅 YouTube channel。我哋下條片再見，拜拜。